It's January 25th. Welcome to this week's edition of CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski.
I'm Josh Fisher. And today we have a lot of things to talk about, along with about how great America's getting since Donald Trump became president last Friday. Kate, I know you're enjoying the first week of the new presidency. We're going to talk with Jamie Stevenson, the first selectman of Darien, who was there. Doug Smith is off this week, so no cartoons, but we have some more fun things to talk about.
Yeah, we also have a staffer's experience at the Women's March on D.C., so we'll talk a little bit about that. It was a busy weekend in Washington, D.C. And, you know, Josh, just last week, you created your list of who you think the top 5 Republican gubernatorial candidates are. And at the top of that list was Trumbull's first selectman, Tim Herbst. Now, just yesterday, a big news story broke that's been all over statewide news about a lawsuit filed. And so we're bringing on Trumbull Times editor Donald Eng to talk to us a little bit about that lawsuit. Don, happy to have you.
Well, thanks. Great to be here. I'm feeling greater already, Jack.
So, Don, tell us a little bit about this lawsuit. What are the details?
Well, this lawsuit was filed in November of last year, and it dates back about 3 years. In August of 2013, a man named Jesse Jablin, not quite sure about that, but he took a job with Tim Herbst in his office. It was a temporary assignment as chief administrative officer. Tim's normal chief of staff was on maternity leave, so this was a temporary position that was created just for Jablin. And while he was working at the Trumbull Town Hall.
One day.
That was a Freudian slip there, wasn't it? While he was working at Trumbull Town Hall, he met Tim's sister, Amanda. The two began a dating relationship, and then on December 7th of 2013, Tim fired him, claiming that he was heading off a potential conflict of interest. That his sister's boyfriend was working directly for him. That doesn't really look that good. So he fired him on December 7th, and then on December 11th, Jablin claims that Tim told him that he would do everything he could to prevent him from working again. And then, and since then, he has cited 2 specific instances of Tim allegedly interfering in his career, including one instance where he claims that Tim told the personnel department in Ansonia that he was untrustworthy, which resulted in him not being hired for an IT job in Ansonia. He also claims that as recently as last year, in October of last year, that Tim had contacted his employer, Enterprise Car Sales in Milford, and insinuated that he was a drug dealer, which you would imagine led to a pretty awkward conversation between him and his supervisors there. So that is the crux of the suit. He's claiming that Tim slandered him to multiple employers or potential employers, and he's seeking about more than $15,000 in damages.
And he's being sued as an individual, not in his capacity as first selectman.
Yes, according to the lawsuit, that he's being sued as an individual. He is being represented by a firm that also represents Trumbull, but according to the lawsuit, he is being sued as an individual.
So, but it's kind of odd that he is using the same law firm that represents the town as his personal attorney. Has that been raised any sort of other sort of, that would have the appearance of a conflict of interest, not necessarily just like having your sister's boyfriend work for you would have the appearance, but not necessarily a conflict of interest.
Right. It has been raised around town, and it's something that he has done before on a number of other occasions. I suppose technically, a firm that represents the town could also work for you in your private capacity if you're paying the bills, but good luck accounting that.
Right.
And he did send out a statement, correct? And I know we have that statement from Tim Herbst. Just take a look at that, where he kind of addresses this lawsuit. And he kind of says that this is based on him announcing that he is going to explore running for governor in 2018. He talks about Governor Malloy's Hartford insider allies and the Connecticut Democratic Party going after him, and that's the reason for this. He goes on to say, I took an oath of office to uphold the laws and ordinances of the town of Trumbull, including the code of ethics. He wanted to prevent a potentially unethical situation from developing. Most of the Connecticut press corps has typically left family out of politics as a matter of decency. Governor Malloy has been accorded that respect with the multiple issues associated with his children. I would hope that would be the case for the governor's critics as well.
I think, though, well, there's maybe some points in there that Tim raises, but this is not the press dragging his family into it. This is a potential new family member filing a lawsuit, which is public information, and bringing the family into it. So
Well, Don, we're going to let you go, but we're going to keep talking about this. Thanks so much for kind of breaking down the lawsuit for us.
Great, no problem, anytime.
Don's going to finish up that Trumbull Times.
Yes, he does. He does.
I wonder what we're putting in it this week.
What's going to be in it this week? I don't know.
Interesting.
So let's talk about this a little bit.
Okay.
Now, what's unfortunate is this is kind of a sad family situation, and every family has their issues. You hate to see this, but the fact of the matter is he's announced that he's considering running for governor, and there's been a lawsuit filed against him. Of course that's news. Of course that's something that's going to be covered, and you have to be cognizant of that. And I'm not sure why he thinks that it would be Governor Malloy's office going against him. I know Kevin Rennie, who writes a great blog at dailyructions.com, he had a great headline on his story on this. He said, Herbst responds, dons the attire of a victim, blames Malloy.
And that's, I mean, I think though this is like it's the politician in Tim Herbst, which we've seen in action for years now since he became first selectman of Trumbull. It's, as soon as you get attacked or something's pointed out, turn it and put it on your opponents. And right now, his main opponent is Dan Malloy, because until Dan Malloy announces he's not running for governor. And in Connecticut, it's usually pretty safe to attack Dan Malloy because even Democrats aren't happy with Dan Malloy. So that's not.
That's a good point.
It's not he's not really reaching there. I mean, I think he's reaching and saying that Dan Malloy is behind this. Without providing any sort of evidence about this, was the man who he had at one point apparently hired to work for him. Is he a Democrat or a Republican? Is he? It would be odd, unless not impossible. But it would be odd though that someone who is engaged to your sister would want to fight a public, would want to start a public fight against you and hurt your political career. They would.
Right.
Hartford
Courant has since written a story on it, talking to the attorney representing Jablon, saying, and that attorney said in part, he is in his private life just as big a bully as he is in his public life. Now, Herbst also went after that attorney, saying, given the track record and unsavory reputation of the attorney who filed this lawsuit, which has been well documented in the media, this type of smear suit is right up his alley. Now, the attorney claims they have some emails that prove some of their claims in the lawsuit. Those have not been made public at this time. And the attorney did respond to Tim's comment to Christopher Keating at the Hartford Courant, saying, coming from a man like Mr. Herbst, I guess I would take that as a compliment. He's the kind of enemy that most decent people would be proud to have. Now, Tim, it is no secret, and this is mentioned, dailyructions.com, Kevin Rennie talks about it. He is known, Tim, for going after people hard when he's campaigning or when he's helping to get Republicans elected. So it seems like a little bit of him, pot calling the kettle black for this lawsuit making news. Now, I was Trumbull Times editor, Josh, when there was discussion about potential conflicts of interest for the Herbst family, because Tim, as first selectman, his mother became the Board of Education chairman, and his father was a longtime, well-respected athletic director at Trumbull High School, who was on the verge of retirement, and I know it came up then. And I will say, in covering it, his mother, very well qualified to have that role. I don't believe that, that had an effect on it, but it does. I mean, it has the appearance that can make people uncomfortable that family in that moment in time had so much control
in the town.
So that came up. So it's interesting that, he fought fiercely against that being a conflict of interest and it being even raised as one at the time. So it's interesting to me that he would all of a sudden see this issue as a potential conflict.
Also,
of interest.
too, since this gentleman was serving a temporary role, he was Tim's chief of staff. I still think it's great that the town first selectman of Trumbull has a chief of staff. That his chief of staff was on maternity leave, and so it was a temporary position, and maybe that's how he met Tim's sister. We don't know for sure, but it wasn't this. It had an expiration date. This job that he had, and. The thing is when you're in a small town, there can be conflicts of interest over anything because it's a small town.
That's a good point.
So if we really delve, deep in, it'd be very hard to find someone to work. To hire all sorts of people. I remember when I was editor in Darien, and when the new first selectman took over, David Campbell, who also his family, he owns Rings End, which is a big company in Darien, and they were challenging the recent reassessment of their property. And he was charged for that being a conflict of interest, that he's first selectman and he owns a big property in town, and then challenging the assessment. But you're going to get people who work and live in your town who are going to serve the town usually. And it's a smaller and smaller pool almost every year because of negative media, because of letters, because of blogs, because of Facebook posts, and people not wanting to put themselves out there to be attacked. We have a smaller and smaller pool every year. You're going to have conflicts of interest because it's usually the same, 100 or so people who are always involved.
Step up and volunteer,
So
right.
there's going to be conflicts of interest when that comes. And it, to me, always worries me much less at a town level, as long as these things are transparent, versus at a federal or statewide level, there being conflicts of interest.
Definitely. And it's just interesting, we're seeing this story now all over the state. And Josh, he was at the top of your list as you thought a strong candidate for Republicans to choose. And do you think this hurts him at all, or is it so early in the process?
It's still so early. Like the thing is when you're in a position of power, you're going to get sued no matter what. This is certainly interesting and salacious because it involves family and it involves, who would have thought that his sister's fiance would sue him. The timing is interesting. This was filed on November 22nd. So it was before, I believe, Herbst officially announced he was had this exploratory committee. But we've all known for the past 2 years that Tim Herbst was going to run for governor. That hasn't been a secret. So the timing of all of that is interesting, but. First selectmen get sued. Editors of newspapers get sued. There's, just because you get sued doesn't mean something is true. Also, and Tim, like anyone else, would have, has every right to defend himself. Him blaming the Democrats and the Malloy machine is wise politically because that could really help him. Because he has to win the Republican nomination first before he has to. Before he has a chance, exactly.
Yeah.
So, or at least the middle of the state. This is, I think, if anything, right now, this is more interesting. And I still think that, if I was betting right now, my bet would be that Tim Herbst is going to be the nominee for governor. Right now, a year from now, a year and a half from now.
It's just interesting because this is another story, and it seems like these are the kind of things that haunt him, which is that he's a bully, he tries to force people out, he abuses power. These are the things that kind of follow him, but in the end, do voters actually care enough about somebody being a bully, or does it need to be something bigger than that to have an effect?
I think, this certainly does meet with a lot of different things you hear about Tim Herbst, and it could be, if it's one time, hey, this could be a mistake. If it happens regularly, it's, we certainly see a pattern of him being accused of this, but he still is considered a rising star in the state. He still is, close friends with J.R. Romano, the head of the Connecticut Republican Party, which certainly has a lot of influence in who becomes the nominee, at least who wins in the convention next spring. So there's a lot of that at play. We should mention that we reached out to Mr. Herbst this morning to see if he could have time to call in today. We mentioned we were going to be talking about this. He's in budget meetings, busy keeping everyone's taxes low in Trumbull right now to help that resume for when he does run for governor.
Well, we imagine. We assume.
Yeah, he's ready for governor. We assume he's...
trying to keep taxes low.
Of course. Well, he's a good Republican, Kate, and all good Republicans try to keep taxes low. There's not a single Republican in Connecticut who's ever raised taxes.
All right. Well, we have a lot more to talk about, Josh. A little bit later, we're going to have on First Selectman Jamie Stevenson talking about her experience at the inauguration. We have a staffer's experience at the Women's March, and also John Shaben talking about his inauguration experience. He had kind of a funny run-in while he was down in
who he bumped
DC.
into. You never know who you're going to take a selfie with when you're in D.C.
All right, so more on that when we come back after this.
Well, there's still a bite out on the water. Most anglers have decided to stow the gear for the winter. Just because Mother Nature isn't cooperating doesn't mean you can't see the latest models of all your favorite gear. With 2 convenient locations, it couldn't be easier to get your fix of summer. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, or on the web, dockshop.com.
Whether you're looking for the freshest seafood, the perfect steak, or want to share delicious appetizers, look no further than the Stone's Throw in Seymour. Chef Peter Hom has more than 30 years of experience creating original recipes in his American eclectic style. Our dishes are made from scratch with fresh, local ingredients that pair perfectly with a seasonal craft beer, a signature cocktail, or your favorite wine. When you visit our Riverside location, you'll feel like you're on vacation when you're only a stone's throw from home. Visit us on Roosevelt Drive in Seymour or at stonestrowct.com.
It's all about meeting goals this year, and Trinity CrossFit of Ridgefield has experienced trainers, top-of-the-line equipment, and a newly renovated space to help get you there. Offering more classes per day than any other CrossFit gyms in the area, we cater to all fitness levels. Our coaches have a combined 10 years of experience in CrossFit, and as competitors themselves, Trinity coaches can get you ready for competition in 2017. Visit our convenient location on Route 7, Danbury Road, or find out more at trinitycrossfit.com.
If you're watching this broadcast, you're not alone. The HAN network is available for 200,000 Connecticut cable customers on the Frontier network, and we've also reached 1.7 million viewers on our free live streaming sports, news, and entertainment broadcasts. To reach our rapidly growing audience, contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
We're back on CT Pulse on the HAN Network. Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher. Now, Josh, a little bit later, as we mentioned, First Selectman of Darien, Jamie Stevenson, is going to join us to talk about the inauguration. But first, our own staffer, Tracy Iazzi, she went to the Women's March. Now, I don't know about you, Josh, but I was amazed at the amount of people I knew personally that marched, whether it was in D.C. or at some of the other marches organized locally.
It certainly was all over Facebook on Saturday, and I know Tracy was very excited, our co-worker and wonderful IT director, who's also right now on a well-deserved vacation, and these are some of her photos.
Yeah.
Right. And so I thought it was great that it was a nice peaceful protest. To me, there's certainly people on the right who are belittling it. Who cares? People are out there protesting, and God bless them. That's the First Amendment right, and people have a right to protest. When Obama won, people protested his election. How quickly we forget that, and that was gave birth to the Tea Party.
Yeah. And just talking a little bit of Tracy's perspective, she kind of wrote what she experienced there. She said, during the entire day, the mood was amazingly calm, respectful, and very positive. At no point did we feel the slightest bit concerned for our safety. She also talked about some of the more interesting signs you saw. Oh, and this is a video of talking about the role of Planned Parenthood. We'll just take a listen to that. Oh, you're just going to... Keep talking. Okay, never mind. That was supposed to have audio, but it's not going to.
Keep talking. It's okay.
All right. Well, she also talked about some of the signs and the chants rising up, some which were very funny, of course. One was, we want a leader, not a creepy tweeter. And I know some people have discussed, what was this march about? Well, I think it was about a lot of things. There was obviously some concerns for women's reproductive rights was a big part of it. Also sexual assault. President Trump in the past joked about sexual assault, and that was a concern. And I also saw that some women who were pro-life were also marching in the Women's March, so just kind of interesting to know.
And some were also, though, complaining that they weren't allowed to have an organizing type of role if you were pro-life in it. So there is that side of this.
And so John Shaben, former state representative who just recently ran against Congressman Jim Himes, he went to the inauguration as well. And I do want to mention he actually talked about the Women's March because he was there for the inauguration. He talked about what a great experience it was. And he said the next day, a new crowd of people began to coalesce to express concerns about Trump and a host of other issues. And he said that it was a great way to punctuate the weekend because it served as a reminder that while the government of the United States has changed hands, millions of people also moved in and out of Washington, D.C., all to express their opinions freely and without major incidents. So I thought it was kind of nice of him to talk about.
I think so, too. I think it's always good to celebrate when everyone can do a peaceful march. There were the anarchists who were there destroying property during the inauguration and beforehand, which seem to be the type of anarchists that show up kind of almost no matter who is president and like to light stuff on fire. So that was too bad. They seem to really hate garbage cans. They piled up a bunch of garbage cans in the middle of the road and lit them all on fire. And that sort of stuff is, terrible, particularly since they destroyed a Bank of America and a Starbucks, and Bank of America donated more money to Hillary Clinton than it did to Donald Trump. But it is great to see something like that. It was nice that everyone was safe. I know there was worries before the Women's March that it might not be that way, and more peaceful demonstrations are always fun.
Well,
At least to watch. I would never actually show up to one. But they seem like a lot of fun to watch on TV every now and again.
Well, talking about John Shaben and his inauguration experience, he wrote about it for the Easton Courier and the Reading Pilot, so you can see more of it. But kind of our feel-good moment of the week is who he ran into when he was there for the inauguration. Yeah. He said the trip started with an amusing coincidence as his wife were walking down a quiet Washington street looking for a friend's house. They bumped into Jim Himes, his opponent in the recent run for U.S. Congress. They laughed about their chance meeting. And see, it's kind of a nice message. We've had John Shaben on the show. Really nice guy, really concerned about Connecticut, and it's nice to see those two former opponents posing for a selfie. It
definitely is. It'll be interesting to see what John does next in his career, to run for Congress. He couldn't run for re-election to the State House. So it'll be, but he certainly has continued to stay active in politics and in Connecticut, so it'll be interesting to see what the next chapter is for John Shaben.
All right, well, we are going to take a break and come back with Darien First Selectman Jamie Stevenson right after this.
When it comes to local entertainment, we've got it all.
From movies, local artists, etiquette, and more.
At the Milford Bank, we offer an extensive selection of lending products and services to meet virtually any need. Submit your application online in our Mortgage Web Center. Start to finish, you can apply for a loan in as little as 10 minutes. Our knowledgeable and helpful staff are available to meet with you at your convenience. To learn more about what we can do for you, stop by one of our Milford Bank offices or visit us at milfordbank.com. The Milford Bank, always there. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Are you ready for winter? Ski and Sport has everything you need to be fully outfitted for the season. A family-owned and operated business with over 40 years of experience, Ski and Sport's 3 convenient locations in Fairfield County offer top-quality, high-fashion ski and winter wear. In addition to clothing for men, women, and children, we also offer seasonal rentals for the entire family. Stop by our stores on 1 Ethan Allen Highway in Ridgefield, 877 Post Road East in Westport, and at 110 Main Street in New Canaan. Or visit us at skiandsport.net.
Discover a world of wellness in the heart of New Canaan. Halo Studios, New Canaan's first collaborative wellness center, offers you the freedom to choose from the best and latest health, fitness, and wellness options. Inside Halo Studios, you'll find all the wellness experts you need at places like Halo Fitness, Priority Wellness, and Sama Yoga Center. Come by for a free wellness assessment, open 7 days a week at 45 Grove Street. For more information, visit halostudios.com or call 203-594-9909. Just have a sports injury or slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Basketball, hockey, skiing, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark Building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
When it comes to local entertainment, we've got it all.
From movies, local artists, etiquette, and more.
Watch HAN Arts and Leisure with me, Steve Coulter, and our Arts and Leisure editor, Sally Sanders, Mondays at 12:30, right here on the HAN Network.
I'm Frank Granito.
And I'm Donald Ing for the HAN Network.
Tune in to Nutmeg Sports Monday through Thursday, where we bring you all the top stories from Connecticut sports.
From highlights to player interviews and expert analysis, no one gets you closer to Connecticut's games than Nutmeg Sports.
Nutmeg Sports, now Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. on the HAN Network.
Welcome back to this week's edition of CT Pulse on the HAN Network. Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher. And on the line, we have Darien's first selectman, Jamie Stevenson, who was in D.C. last week for the inauguration. Jamie, so happy to have you on CT Pulse.
Thanks so much, Kate. Hello, Josh. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, great to talk with you. Now, Jamie, leading up to the inauguration, there was a lot of talk about what officials were and weren't going to the inauguration. So what were your reasons for wanting to be there?
I feel like this inauguration, much like the first inauguration of President Obama, is a real turning point in American political history. and serving now as an elected official, I have a very a much vested interest and a curiosity about the transition of power, and so I thought it was a great opportunity for me to go, once in a lifetime experience for sure.
Yeah. So, and it looked like following you on Twitter at Jamie Stevenson, Jayme, as you see there on the screen, and we're cycling through some of the photos. You had pretty good seats, Jamie, and you got to see, be part of quite that really big crowd there around the Capitol. What was it like? What was the energy like as you waited from like 11 o'clock up until noon when the swearing in happened?
The energy was really amazing. You were struck so much by the presence of the Capitol building itself and all of the pomp and circumstance around the inauguration itself. People were very happy and expressive of the gravity and poignancy of the moment. It was really fun to be right there in the middle of the crowd and listening to people cheer and clap. I really want to thank Congressman Jim Himes for connecting me with some pretty awesome tickets, too.
Oh, that's great. That's bipartisan support right there.
We like to hear that.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, Jamie, obviously there was a lot of controversy afterwards about the size of the crowd, but what did you see in your opinion?
I have to laugh a little bit because it's kind of a funny dialogue when you think about it, and sounds a bit high schoolish to talk about how big the crowd is. But from my vantage point, and hopefully you can see it on the photos that I took myself, the mall was pretty filled with people. A lot of America turned out to witness the peaceful transition of power in Washington, D.C.
And I think that is something that always, it gets me every time we have a new president, and is that peaceful transition that started when John Adams took over from George Washington over 200 years ago, and it's just amazing to see. And for me, I've never been a big Trump fan, but I got just super excited watching that, and was as proud to be an American that day as I was in 2009 and in 1993 and in 1989 too.
Absolutely. I was struck also by the dignitaries who were up on the Capitol steps with President Trump, and it certainly couldn't have been easy for some of the folks who were there. Hillary Rodham Clinton was obviously there with her husband Bill, and I know it had to have been a fairly difficult day for her. So I really admire her courage and grace in that moment, especially for some of the other folks when President Trump got into his inaugural address and really clearly was holding the establishment politicians accountable, or laying out his plans to do that. I'm sure some of the folks up there were squirming in their seats a bit, but
it's always fun to see.
It's the beautiful thing about democracy in the United States of America, very different than when there's transitions of power in most countries around the world.
So, Jamie, were there any other inaugural events that you were able to attend while you were there?
Yes, absolutely. We went to the museum right after the swearing-in ceremony and joined the New York GOP organization to watch the parade, and that was a fantastic vantage point. The museum is an extraordinary museum in and of itself, so we were grateful to be there and to really have sort of front row seats to watch the parade go by. And then we attended the Freedom Ball in the evening, and that was very interesting. Lots of people there, all dressed up and celebrating the new administration. I will say, too, that while it wasn't part of the inaugural festivities, I did have an opportunity to go view the law enforcement memorial and see the beginnings of construction of the new law enforcement museum, which will be a wonderful tribute to all of our law enforcement professionals and first responders across America.
That's great. When did you come home? Were you there on Saturday during the Women's March?
We did. We came home on Sunday, so we were there during the Women's March. I did not participate in the Women's March, but I was interested to still be in Washington for that. I am very respectful of all of the folks that came out to express their viewpoints. I think there were folks who were marching for a variety of different reasons. And again, that's just a testament to America's democracy, that we can have an inauguration one day and literally a peaceful protest the next day. So it was interesting to be there. Lots of women in pink hats was interesting and somewhat hard to get around town for that day as well.
I think that was what was kind of just so neat, and it was one of those things that makes me, kind of sentimental and proud to be an American when you see that peaceful transfer of power and how wonderful that day on Friday was and how exciting it was to watch all of that, which I did from my living room. And then watch on Sunday also the peaceful protest, and the peaceful that seemed to be mostly positive protest about equality. Certainly, there's some razzing of President Trump, but it was just so wonderful to see. It's almost like our Constitution in action. And I thought that was a really special. It's kind of neat how the inauguration fell on a Friday this year, and then we got to have the Saturday, and then Sunday we got to watch two terrible football games. So,
I'm not sure the Patriots won, so one of the games was good in any case.
Well, Jamie, I agree with you on that.
It was very efficient for the city of Washington, D.C., and I really have to take my hat off to the people who are responsible for the logistics and the public safety that's required for two events of that size. With my emergency management hat on, I clearly understood how much planning went into the inauguration and the Women's March, and a couple of negative protests the day of the inauguration. I never quite will understand why folks feel compelled to damage property when they're trying to make political statements. But all in all, it was very, very well managed from the city's perspective.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, since you were there to see the start of the Trump presidency, any opinion thus far on the first week in office?
I can't help but think that President Trump has a whole lot to learn. There's really no way to prepare yourself, I imagine, for being the new leader of the free world. And so I'm very pleased to see the hearings progressing. Wonderful to watch Linda McMahon's confirmation hearing yesterday. So I think that we need to give him some time to sort of settle into his job. He did make some promises to America. It seems as though he's trying to begin to follow through on some of those things. But I imagine he's mostly, learning the day-to-day rigors of the job.
Jamie, how does it make you feel as a successful elected Republican official here in Connecticut when the president still focuses on these things like crowd size and claims that 3 to 4 million undocumented or illegal residents voted in the election, rather than focusing on the moving America forward? How does that make you feel?
Unfortunately, I think we now live by virtue of social media in a soundbite society, and I have just decided that there's certain things that I am not really going to focus on and pay attention to. I'm going to be most interested to see what he does from a policy perspective. So, honestly, I disregard some of those statements. And really the proof will be when he begins to address issues like foreign policy, and how he's going to keep corporations here in America and grow business and grow jobs. So that's really what I'm focused on. I don't really want to focus on some of the pettiness. I'm sorry that he feels compelled to do so, but I won't judge him on that. I'm going to judge him on his work product.
Okay.
Well, Jamie, thanks so much for joining us today to kind of share your perspective and talk about that experience. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It was really an honor to be there, memories that I will cherish for a very long time, and I'm going to be very positive and optimistic about the next 4 years under President Trump for the American people.
Thanks.
Thanks so much,
And we'll
Jamie.
all be very positive, too, about the Patriots having to get a Super Bowl trophy for Roger Goodell when next Sunday comes along, right?
Absolutely.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, Jamie Stevenson, First Selectman of Darien, thank you so much. Josh, we are going to wrap things up here on CT Pulse. Of course, if you missed any of the show, catch it on demand at han.network.
Yep, and Nutmeg Sports is coming up at 2 o'clock, and then wrestling makes its 2017 debut on the HAN Network. We got a good one for you at 5 o'clock tonight. Fairfield Ward takes on Danbury up at the home of the Hatters. Frank Granito and Bill Bloxham will have the call, but coming up in less than an hour, Frank and Kevin Coleman will lead you a nice array of all that's going on in Connecticut sports. Various and sundry.
All right, we will see you next Wednesday for CT Pulse. Bye.
Very.